So the elites have been dining on sirens or mermaids, and the government has black sites on islands in the Atlantic where they run experimental tests on these things. The story starts out with a gentleman named Landon who is 28 years old and fresh out of prison living at his parents' house. He'd been looking for a job since the day he got out, but the fact that he was now a felon as a result of his crimes, there really wasn't anybody willing to hire him, not even to a part-time gig. Regardless of him looking, it finally got to the point where his parents had had enough, and they tell him either A, call your cousin Travis and see if he has a spot for you on his charter, or B, your ass is going to end up on the streets. Pick one. So he finally decides to call his cousin Travis, who's a couple states away, is located in a little town off the east coast of the United States. It's one of those places that everyone that lives there does some sort of fishing for a living, whether it be tourism or for bulk fishing. Basically, if you grew up there, that's what you did to earn income. And luckily for Landon, his cousin actually did have a spot for him that recently came open. So he asked him when he can start, and they agree next week. He packs his stuff and heads out of state. So when he gets there, his cousin sets him up with a nearby hotel as they had just gotten back from a previous trip. And about a week later, it was time to go back out. That morning, he and his cousin meet up at the docks with a couple other guys, and his cousin introduces him to the captain, Captain Burgess, who was running this charter. He kind of raised an eyebrow, realizing very quickly that his cousin Travis no longer had a charter, and that he was actually working for this gentleman. At first, he was kind of irritated by the revelation, but hey, it was a job, and he was a felon, so what was he gonna do? He just kind of rolled with the punches. So they go ahead and they board this ship. It was a good-sized ship. It was probably considered medium-sized compared to other charters, and his cousin Travis was showing him around where he'd be sleeping, the kitchen, etc. when they go into this section of the boat, and Landon sees something that kind of catches him off guard. In this massive area of the ship, he sees these tanks that are probably big enough to fit a human in. Not only that, he also notices that there's some weird bluish fluid in each of the tanks. They were set on wheels, and you could activate a brake so they wouldn't move. The tanks had lids on them as well. What the hell are these? He asked Travis. He goes on to explain that Captain Burgess, though he catches regular fish for the market, he also has a very specific clientele for a certain type of fish that if they catch, they were all in for a big payout. Landon proceeds to ask him what kind of fish he's talking about, and that's when Travis tells him, just wait, you'll see, man, don't worry about it. So later that night, they're eating dinner on the ship, and they're about to take off when Landon is approached by the captain. He hands Landon this piece of paper. Here, son, we're gonna need you to sign this. Kind of taken aback, Landon looks at the paper, and it says non-disclosure agreement, basically stating that anything that happens on this ship stays on this ship. Nothing can be spoken of to the outside world. What is this? Just in case we snag a megalodon or something? He and Travis both laugh, and when they glance at the captain, they quickly realize he's obviously not amused by the joke. Go ahead and sign it, son, he said in a stern voice. All right, said Landon, kind of raising an eyebrow. After dinner, he and Travis are on the way back to his bunk, and he asks, what was that all about, Travis? Again, he proceeds to tell him not to worry about it. It's just part of the protocol these days, and shrugs it off. So for the next couple days, they fish, and nothing really seems out of the ordinary. They catch some marlin, some summer flounder, the usual types of fish these charters catch. That was until the third day out. The captain warned that it was supposed to storm pretty bad that night, and it did. It was about to get much worse, and they were hauling in the last of their nets when the captain runs down on the deck and yells, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. We got something big in this last net here, boys. Get ready. At this point, it's pouring rain, and he calls everybody to the deck and tells everybody to get ready for this last haul. Landon is baffled. At this point, he doesn't know what to think. They begin hauling up the last net that had been at the bottom of the ocean all day. Landon continues to watch curiously as they pull the final net from the water, and when he sees the catch, he can't believe his eyes. There in the net was something that he'd never seen in his entire life. It had pasty white skin with a green hue to it. He quickly noticed that from the hip down, the creature had the body of a fish. Its scales glistened as the lights bounced off from it. The silvery white colors were like nothing he'd ever laid eyes on. The being had greenish black hair, and though it was structured like a human, it looked nothing like one. It was terrifying to look at. He noticed it had a slimy film covering the entirety of its body. He was stunned as he looked on, the creature putting up little to no fight as they wrangled it inside the net. But then, even more to his astonishment, the beast began to speak. It was in a language he had never heard before, but he could tell by its demeanor that it seemed like the creature was begging for its life. He felt himself get a little lightheaded as the events were taking place, when his cousin Travis told him, "Landon, hey Landon, snap out of it, grab this." Just so he didn't look so dumbfounded, he grabbed a rope coming off from the net and pretended to pull on it. At this point, Captain Burgess yells to a couple other crew members, "Get the tank, get the tank." When they disappear, he grabbed the same tanks he saw when he was first on the ship with the blue liquid in them. The fluid was sloshing all over the deck when they dropped the creature in the tank, and she sinks to the bottom, begging for her life. "Good haul, boys. We're about to get a nice payday for this one." The whole crew kind of hooted and hollered. Landon couldn't believe what he was seeing. Later that night, after dinner, Landon goes to Travis and said, "Hey man, I didn't sign up for this shit. What the hell is going on?" Travis responds by telling him, "Man, don't make a big deal out of this. Don't. Trust me." And he gives him a look unlike any he'd ever given him before. And Landon knew at that moment to shut up immediately. Little did he know, something much more sinister was afoot. After the catch, they ended up pulling anchor and heading to shore. When they get there, they unload all of the regular fish at the bay. But later that night, they go somewhere else. The ship pulls from the dock and proceeds upshore a few more miles, when it gets to a spot where it's nothing but a rocky ledge on the shoreline. But as they're moving along, Landon notices what looks like a massive warehouse built right into the cliffside, and they proceed to drive the ship past these huge double doors that close behind them. As they're pulling in, Landon notices a small building that looked kind of like a restaurant with a group of about 25 to 30 people sitting scattered throughout it. These people look elite. They look like they're absolutely loaded. Dressed to the nines, suits, ties, jewelry, you name it, they have it. He immediately can tell what he thinks might be going on here. Shortly after docking the ship, 4 men that look like they're dressed in restaurant attire push a large ladle out to the side of the ship. That's when he notices one of the crew members get up and get in the seat of what looks like a small crane with a winch on it. One of the guys on the deck hooks 4 large cables to each corner of the tank. It proceeds to lift the tank up and over the edge of the ship, slowly lowering it to just above the ladle. When they get the 2 tanks lined up perfectly, the captain proceeds to press a button, and suddenly the bottom of the tank bursts open, with the beast and the blue liquid sloshing into the ladle. The men on the ground shut the lid and lock it as quick as they can. Landon looks on in horror as he finally realizes exactly what's going on. He can hear the creature frantically hitting the sides of the ladle, beating on it, begging for its life. Restaurant employees pushed the ladle back into the restaurant in what looked like the kitchen area. He then notices the people sitting at the tables. They seem to be chattering with excitement more than ever. He quickly realizes exactly what's going on here. The elite were paying buku bucks to eat the flesh of sirens and mermaids, and the world has no idea. These stories originated from @jlee2.07 on TikTok. Go give her a follow. She's the one that started posting about the elites eating mermaids. She received an email from a person who had actually witnessed it, one of the people in the stories. She posted it in 8 different parts, but she has a playlist with all those parts right on it, so you can watch them one right after another. Go give her a follow, check out her story, and also guys, I love telling stories like this. Go ahead, if you have any types of crazy stories, scary stories, experiences, encounters, anything of the like, go ahead and shoot me a message on TikTok. I will see it, and maybe I'll tell your story. Thanks guys, and stay tuned.